All right, everyone, it's just me tonight. For anybody new here, hi, I'm Maggie. I'd like to welcome you to the Wives Club. We are back and we are live. Our stream got pushed tonight because the Godfather was streaming, and good news. We are going to have a Kevin Samuel stream, I believe, the first Friday of every month. So I'm really excited that the estate is keeping the message alive for anybody who doesn't know who we are. And tonight it's just me. The Wives Club was created by Kevin Samuels because I actually booked a session with him in 2021. I wanted to create a community of like minded and marriage minded women, but I wanted to do it within the privacy of his Patreon group. And I am so grateful. Not only did Kevin give us his blessing, he actually came up with the name, the Wives Club. So we're open for current, former, future wives, anyone with a marriage mindset. So I'm going to make this quick tonight and just give you all a little bit of a reaction now that we have new or re-released content coming from the channel. So a few episodes ago there was a story that Kevin Samuels told about George Jefferson. And I'm older, I'm Gen X, I'm 47, and I share with you all that I was married at 25 to my college boyfriend. Absolutely loved being married. I have two boys from the marriage, but I always say, unfortunately, I did get caught up in that modern woman mindset. And so the marriage ended in divorce after 10 years. It's amicable now, and we co parent really well. Since the divorce, I've been in my second relationship, another long term with a 1% man. And so for me, I've had to do a lot of work to get on his program, and I haven't been happier. But this is what I share with younger women. And it all started because I was inspired after my session with Kevin. So, the George Jefferson story, and I have linked the episode in the description so you all can check it out. It was a short one, about 15 minutes. So there was a TV show decades ago that we used to watch called The Jeffersons, and the story was about a very dynamic man named George Jefferson who moved his family from, I believe it was Queens or a lesser prosperous side of New York to, I believe, the Upper East Side, a more prosperous side of New York. And he was an average Black man who married an average Black woman. They had a son, and they were living the type of lifestyle that probably a lot of women would want. His wife's name was Louise. He affectionately called her Wheezy, and I have fond memories of watching their their antics in the episode. But aside from it being a comedy, it was a very insightful story, and Kevin chimed in on this in that episode where he was talking about this was a man who didn't have a college degree. This was a man who started out as a working at a dry cleaners, and then because of his own grit and determination, he now owned that and probably several dry cleaners. And Wheezy, his wife, was an average Black woman. I can relate. I definitely consider myself average. And Wheezy found herself a good man and hitched her wagon to that. And she was able to, follow and support him in his purpose, and then was living, a life in a high rise with a maid and their son, and, was able to keep her family intact. So I just want to talk about three things tonight since it's late. I hope you all enjoyed Kevin's stream last night. I was taking, earlier tonight, I was taking some notes, so we will definitely react to that. So, number one, I want to talk about, and I made some notes here for myself, what I learned about blue collar men, and how has that changed from my own life experience. And you all can chime in whether you're watching live or watching the replay. Number two, I want to talk about what lessons we learned from George. And number three, what lessons we learned from Wheezy. And then that's it. So I'll just give you all about 10 or 15 minutes tonight, and we'll pick up next time. So the Wives Club did a detailed episode on this several weeks back, maybe several months back now, about the benefit of blue collar brothers. And so I would encourage you to watch that if you haven't. But I will say this: I have learned so much from the hardworking blue collar brothers in the community. And I have to say, almost a little bit ashamed, I am a student of academia. I'm a bookworm. I'm a nerd. I have a bachelor's. I have an MBA. I come from a family where both of my parents are PhDs. And so I was just raised to think that academia is where it's at. And I know in our community, oftentimes, we women, we love that those accolades and chasing that gold star and wanting that certificate. But what I have learned in my older years, and this is my heartbeat to help younger women, that we are not built for the long haul in the same way that men are. So I remember being that young, ambitious Maggie. I'm going to change the world. I got this piece of paper on the wall. You couldn't tell me anything. And then, marriage and 2 kids later, I always tell you all that I hit the wall. However, when you contrast that with the brothers in the community that are working, handymen, plumbers, George Jefferson, dry cleaner, police officers, so many men are able to carry the burden so much longer into life compared to us women. It's just the facts. We are both valuable, but we are not equal. And I had to learn that the hard way. And that's what I always tell women. Yeah, we can do it, but can we do it until 65? So what I've learned and what I've appreciated, especially being a boy mom, a mom of 2 teenage boys who have, said that they want to take the military route. When a man makes himself and he's able to, work, whether it's with his hands or with his back or with his brain, there's a certain pride that he gets for providing for his family. And oftentimes, if I'm being honest, ladies, sometimes we get these big jobs and we get these big degrees, and then we're miserable because we hate it. We just think, oh my gosh, another Monday morning. So I would just offer that if a man, whether he's college educated or not, but if he's not maybe to the level of sophistication that you think he should be, if he is a good man on his purpose and you believe in him, I would highly advise you not to overlook our blue collar brothers, because the protection that they provide and the outlook on life that they have that is not hampered by, in the industry of higher education, which, let's just admit, it is a business. It has its benefits, but it is a business. So that was my number one. I'd love to know what you all think. And then I'm going to move on to 2 and 3. Who do we have here? What does Jaybird say? Very true. As a college instructor, I've met several female students who were convinced that they had to start careers and make themselves independent first. And ladies, thank you for the comment. And ladies, I'm never going to poo-poo on education. I enjoy it. I know not everybody does, but I would just advise you of this. If you are taking the higher education route, that's fine. Just make sure that you are getting the type of higher education that will serve you well and serve your family well. If marriage and family is what you want, here in the Wives Club, we believe that marriage is a mindset. You are a wife before you are found. So watch out for those degrees that rack up a lot of debt, but they don't uh, provide back in salary what you have invested. And then also, a lot of these big jobs require you to give your best years to corporate America. And I've been corporate since college, and it can be great when it's great, but when they want to make a change, you're just a number. So I would advise ladies, if marriage and family is what you want, try to work in a way that benefits your family, whether it's part-time or whether it's from home, and then make sure that it's not something that puts you or your future husband in debt. What does Real Bravado Network say? He says, do you mind if I come up and talk to you about Blue Collar Men? Let me drop the link. Absolutely not. It's just me tonight. We had to push the stream back a couple times, but I definitely wanted to support whenever we get new content from Kevin Samuel's channel. So if anybody wants to chat with me, I only had 3 points today. We were talking about Kevin's recent episode about the George Jefferson story. Any of you all who are Gen Xers, I'm sure you remember the series. I'm sure with technology, you all can find it on, I don't know, Hulu or something like that. But yes, I was just talking about Blue Collar Men. So Real Bravado Network is going to come up and chat for a few minutes. And then, okay, he says be right there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my last 2 points, and then we'll close it out with Real Bravado Network. So that was number one. What have I learned about Blue Collar Men? And we were going to take a round with the ladies, but I don't expect anybody to stay up this late. All right, so let me move on to my number 2 point. What have I learned, or what lessons can I learn from George Jefferson? So if you've ever watched this show, yes, it was a comedy. It was a sitcom, right? A situational comedy, and it was a lot of fun. However, if you remember the personality of George Jefferson, he was a firecracker. He was, as Deion Sanders says, he was him. He was not going to be changed. He was, a man of, shorter height. He was balding, but he had the bravado and the ego of somebody, 10 feet tall, right? What does Lisa say? I'm so glad I worked on my education and had a career before I had my children. I never wanted to feel stuck. Exactly. Ladies, life changes when you have children. It just does. Even if you don't have children, as we age, we're just built different. And so, take this from an older woman who remembers her 20s very well. I'm glad I did prioritize relationship, but it just changes and I can't explain it. But one day you wake up in that big office and that big promotion and all that stuff that you work so hard for, you look at it differently. So George Jefferson, oh, how would I describe George Jefferson? Any of you all watching in the chat, if you remember the Jeffersons, how would you describe him in one word? Maybe you would say difficult. I see you, Roberto. I'm just going to finish this one out. I would say difficult, but he was a man. He was a provider. He had his way of doing things, and y'all remember, his wife George all the time. She would just have to understand that this was her husband, but she believed in him, and it was beautiful to see. So just know this, I always tell ladies who want a certain caliber of man, they are on their purpose. They have their goals and their vision. And if you choose wisely and you learn how to get on their program, you end up getting what you want. But just know that their drive comes first, and just realize that being in a marriage, it is a role. Like Kevin used to say, it's a job description. All right, and so my last one, hello, Fafalise, my last one, and then I'll bring up Real Bravado. So the first one was, what did we learn about blue collar men from the George Jefferson story? Number two was, what did we learn from George, from the George Jefferson story? And then number three was, what lessons can we learn from Louise? And Louise was his wife. And what I loved about this, if you listen to the Kevin episode that I put in the description, Louise was an average African-American woman. She was, rotund or kind of fluffy, like me. She was, average in the face, like me. She was, darker skin. She was just, in my opinion, like a lot of our aunties and moms and whatnot. And she had, a life that a lot of us even today would probably, wish for, a provider man. She lived at the top of a high rise, maybe a little bit more glamorous than just, above average. But the lesson that we learned, and Kevin actually talked about it in tonight's stream, and I've shared with you all, the relationship that I'm in is with somebody that I knew when I was young and I was ready, because I was raised to be a wife, but we're the same age, couple years, and he was not ready. And he told me that. He said, I need to go live my life, frat boy experience or whatever, and do all of that. And I just had to understand that, I can be the right woman at the wrong time. So we parted ways, broke my little heart, but I always respected and, believed, if it was supposed to be, there's nothing I can do to force it. Fast forward all these decades later, and now, he is a completely different person because he did take that time to build himself and go through whatever men have to do away from women sometimes. And so, sometimes I know people probably look at me and say, oh, what's so special about her? But he remembered how I was loyal and faithful and never got in the way of what he wanted to do. And so it does come back. And I guess the last thing I'll say, ladies, men really appreciate loyalty and really remember who believed in them when they weren't the current version of themselves. And there's really nothing that you can do to make up for those years because the time is just really a non-negotiable. So it's not the end of the world, but if you wait until a man has made himself and then you show up, it's going to be a lot harder for you to prove that your intentions are pure. So that's what I learned from Wheezy, and so she ended up getting the benefit of believing in her man when he was just working at the dry cleaner. And then I talked about George Jefferson, what we learned from him. Um, Quite the character that he was, and nobody was going to change him. You either get on his program or you can fall off too. And then blue collar men in general. Okay, so those were my 3 points. Hello, Star Child. So speaking of blue collar men, I am going to bring up the Real Bravado Network. How are you tonight?
Hey, good evening, Maggie. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you.
This is a fascinating topic that you brought up. The one thing that I wanted to, I mean, I got so much because you said so much, but blue collar men, let me tell you something. A lot of times, people poo poo on blue collar men because not just our ladies, but even sometimes even other men, is because they have a profound lack of understanding of what that actually means.
Mm,
And blue collar, when you hear blue collar, you got like this imagery in your head about what that looks like or what that means, including the level of sophistication that you think that these blue collar, so-called blue collar men bring. But when you think about blue collar, I'm going to talk about specifically two different um, uh, fields, two different positions. Okay, I'm going to talk about the construction worker, and I'm going to talk about the mechanic, who we can easily classify as blue collar. Would you agree?
yes, sir.
Okay, and one of the reasons why I think that they classify those men as blue collar or skilled worker is because they focus completely on the physical aspect of the actual job, the actual physical labor portion of the job. But what you're not taking in consideration is the education that comes with that job. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of people do not associate education with construction worker or with mechanic. Well, specifically, my father is a diesel mechanic. And when you actually start to sit down and he has to explain why something is broken and what caused it to break, you start to understand that this man that is greasy, dirty, has a high level of education on science, engineering, the things that we typically associated with white collar. You have to have a fundamental, a rudimentary, or even an advanced level of understanding of mathematics, physics, and stuff like that to be a mechanic. We associate mathematics, physics, and physiology, pressure, because there's compression ratios in the engine. We associate the mathematics with white collar, But the person who needs to understand that the most is the blue collar guy. So we do not typically understand or value how educated these men actually are. These men are mathematical geniuses if you sit down and take the time to listen and try to understand what they do. The construction guy who has to pour concrete, he also has to understand physics. He also has to understand chemistry. You know who else has to understand chemistry? The so-called janitor, because he has to mix chemicals and stuff like that to satisfy. And the reason why I understand is because I'm a respiratory therapist. I work in a hospital. And my job is considered white collar, while I consider it blue collar, because my job is it's about 60% hands-on, and then the rest of it is the actual science and education. So a lot of times when we have people out here poo-pooing or turning their nose up or down um at a at a mechanic, you have no idea what you're actually rejecting. And the fact that your rejection of them is biased and uneducated in itself. So I hope I didn't make that too convoluted,
No,
with
that
explaining it.
was really good, and I appreciate that so much. I see what Jaybird said. I was thinking the same thing. We got the condemned here saying yes, engineers representing. I'm a STEM girl too. I got a chemistry degree, but I don't work in a laboratory, so uh, I'm one of those that went back to school for something I could actually use. Jaybird says true. I may work in academia, but I come from a lower middle class family, and excuse me, like KS, I have the utmost respect for blue collar workers. I'm always impressed by the skill of the contractors I hire. That's so true. And I believe we talked about this in our previous stream. Every guy that's got a big, high powered, corporate job, a lot of us women who work around them, if you really take the time to talk to them and get to know them, they are maybe one family member removed from humble beginnings, especially in our community. Everybody that I know has got, some type of, whether it's truck driver or electrician or whatever, not somebody who works with their hands in their family. So let's not get too high and mighty on this. Ultimately, when it comes down to relationships, which is what Kevin was always promoting, whoever you choose, whether he's white collar or blue collar, I guarantee when it comes to men and women, he's willing to do it for the long haul a lot longer than you are. So, we college educated women, who would think that, oh, we're so much more sophisticated or so much more educated than, when you get 35, 40, and you're just like, I hate it here. It's another Monday. And he's doing what he's done for 20 years and loving it like never before, and building and owning that big degree that you thought was so important. You'd probably think about swapping that in for a different kind of life. So I would just encourage the women to tread lightly. But yeah, thank you for saying that. Do you remember? Did you get a chance to watch TJ the
The,
George Jefferson, either Kevin Samuels recap or anything about the show that was a takeaway for
I
you?
I vaguely remember. I know they were doing the premiere, but I was unfortunately tied to father duties tonight with my daughter, so I didn't get. So I got to go back and watch it. But I vaguely remember the him when he talked about the George Jefferson. Um, the thing that I remember most about it is him talking specifically about what he had to do to get there, and how remarkable the wife was to support that. And Wheezy was a stay-at-home mom. She was not out here in the workforce. And I know this is the wives club, but for a second, Maggie, let's set aside the marriage. Only 9% of our women, only 9%, that's almost nothing, make over 75 grand a year. So our ladies that are out here, um, kind of poo-pooing the volume of money that our guys make. Believe it or not, our ladies don't really understand how much a mechanic can actually that is actually earning. You know what I mean? And so you're out here poo-pooing that, and you're actually are when you're not in the 9%. We talk a lot of times in our spaces about women who earn over 75K a year. That is a small number. So the bulk of our women are looking at the small number of women and dismissing eligible men because they all believe that at some point they're going to be in that small number of women, but yet you're dismissing guys who actually, my dad makes that as a mechanic. You know, and the majority of our women barely make 40 grand a year. And they're out here poo-pooing and dismissing. You know, reminds me of the Ebony K. Williams talking about, you know, a bus driver. I wouldn't date a bus driver only if he owned a bus. Well, guess what? My dad's baby brother, my uncle Brian, is a bus driver, and the man makes over 70K a year as a bus driver. These are not, you know, small, you know, of course he's been there 25 years driving the city bus, but these are not small earning. And believe it or not, a 65, 70K a year salary is an impressive salary. It absolutely is.
It is. It's almost double the average. And, I mean, shout out to, women like that who think I'll date him when he owns the bus company. The mistake in that thinking is that you're going to be the only one that he's choosing from. So, ladies, Kevin
And
talked about it in the episode tonight. A lot of women miss out because they think, oh, I'll get the next one or the next bus is coming. There's a lot to be said about choosing wisely, using your youth, and using it wisely, because when a man has made himself, he has a lot of options. So I would just encourage ladies, because I don't know her situation right now, but I don't think she has anybody, bus driver or not. And I'll just end with this. The guy that I have, he's a VP now, but when I knew him, I was making more than he was, but I believed in the vision that he had. And he told me, I'm going to be one of the Black VPs in Atlanta. And he wasn't. And I was like, I believe you. And he's there now. So it's,
if I can give you two final quick points, and I'll unhijack the wives club.
no problem.
Two final points right now is the a lot of ladies don't understand that if the man decides to become the owner of the bus company, what makes you think he's going to choose you? Most of those guys go and choose. A lot of guys, if they're single, there's a woman around them that he's waiting to get himself ready for, who's been encouraging him, who's been flirting with him, who's been asking to be his permanent woman, and all it when he's had nothing. When he feels secure enough to bring that woman, he's going to go get that woman, not you. Second of all, the money. Listen, I understand why women would like for a man to have a certain level of money. But when you talk about Black culture, throughout history, Black women in general have not, in mass, have not been stay-at-home moms. They've had to work alongside of their men. They've had to contribute. And I'm going to tell you something specifically that my grandfather, who is still alive, he's 86 years old, is still alive, married to my grandmother for 60 years. Let me tell you something. My grandmother worked for 40 years. My grandfather worked for almost 50 years. Let me tell you something, what they thought about money, how they thought about money. And my grandmother out-earned my grandfather. My grandmother's philosophy was, it didn't matter who made the money when you're married. That my grandmother used to say, the money doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to your grandfather. It belongs to the institution of our marriage. It belongs to our family. So I don't look at the money as what I earn. I don't look at it as my money. This is my family's money. Now, me and your grandfather are the stewards of this money. We decide how these resources are going to be spent. And they had 6 children together. They're all boys, my dad and all uncles. And those resources and the way that they managed them has left a small legacy for us, but it's about your mind. Maggie, I'm not going to keep you because you know you and I can talk all night long about this subject and this, and this, and we've been on the phone sometimes a few hours talking about this subject and stuff like that. But I just wanted to point out for the ladies that are listening now or going to listen later, especially about how you look at blue collar men. And I know what the imagery of that is, but understand, take another layer off of that and look at the functionality and understand how much education and how smart these men have to be to produce that job, not just the physical, but the intellect that it goes into being a mechanic, being a construction worker, being a sanitation worker, being a bus driver. It takes a little bit more than what you guys think, and the education is a little bit more than what you think it is.
Absolutely.
Good night,
Thank you.
Maggie.
Good night, TJ. Thank you so much for coming up. I appreciate you. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to wrap this up. I see a few more people in the chat. What did Jay Bird say? Especially the concrete and block masons building my house. I really admit they have a valuable set of skills. Yeah, absolutely, ladies. And there's so many benefits to our blue collar brothers. If you are a homeowner or even an apartment or whatever, stuff just gets fixed. Stuff that you don't even think about. Because believe me, I didn't think about the roof and all that stuff. And my guy was like, you need this, you need paint, you need what? It's just, it's wonderful. Wonderful. Less money that you have to spend. Double C says, I wish I could make 70K. Yeah, I mean, ladies, we know the average salary, I think, for men in our community is like what, 45 or something. Other communities maybe 55. There was there was a man on the stream tonight with Kevin Samuels who was a traveling something and he makes 50K, and Kevin was on him to, to get more skills. And that doesn't mean going to college and sinking yourself in a lot of debt. There are so many programs, there's so many certificates. I work in technology and I'm on the business side of technology, but there's so many certifications that you can get. So whatever your field is, unfortunately, we know today it's hard for an average hardworking man to find a woman who's loyal and will stay there. She's out there, but unfortunately, there's a lot of that other stuff going on. But I would encourage you all, once you've created a life for yourself that you're proud of and you can completely take care of yourself, then you say, this is what I have to offer. And if that woman doesn't want it, believe me, there is a woman who does. So I would encourage you all, if you've never watched The Jeffersons, I'm sure it's on rerun somewhere, or if you have time, spend 15 minutes and take a look at Kevin's stream that I put linked in the description, because it is a sitcom, but there's really a story behind there for, an average family to make it to, an expensive part of New York. We got Luke Casely in the house. You all know Luke Casely. She and I have created the finishing school for the modern woman, and I am just so, so proud to be working with her. We both have the Kevin Samuels connection. So, ladies, if you are tired of being masculine, if you thought you had to carry the whole burden and you have to compete with men, and you're tired of being that hard version of yourself, check out Lucy and me. We've got so much stuff that we're doing to try and promote, because we want to keep what Kevin was saying as far as he listed them out today. What makes an in-demand woman? And I was taking notes in the chat. Let's see who else. Double C says that's deep. Thank you. Great conversation tonight. Jaybird says, indeed, that's how it should be. Unfortunately, too many modern women won't make that investment in their families. They don't seem to have faith that it will last. Yeah. Ladies, we got a lot of work to do. And when I booked that session with Kevin in 2021, it wasn't for me. I know I'm average, but, being a boy mom and not having daughters, I just really had a heart for, helping younger women who haven't gotten this message. It's so messed up. But I really believe the older women should teach the young, and that's what we do here in the Wives Club. And I'm committing to being back with you all live every week, and hopefully we'll have a panel. But if not, there's so much good content that I can respond to and react to. You're so welcome, Real Bravado. Great to hear from you. Yes, it's great to see a wise man join the panel. So, if you ever want to join, the Wives Club is here for marriage minded. We started with the ladies, former wives like me, um, amicably divorced, but absolutely a huge supporter of marriage. We have current wives like Lucas and Lisa. Godspeed her. She's a little bit under the weather. And for future wives like AV, who has now gotten her man and off living her best life. But ladies, if you ever want to join the panel, I always put about a week out the Kevin Samuels video that we're going to be responding to and the questions that I'm going to be asking in the agenda. So whether you're watching live or the replay, if you have a marriage mindset, you are welcome here in the Wives Club, and men too. So Jaybird says, I need to catch the Jeffersons again. I was always a Cosby Show watcher growing up. Both great shows in their own way. Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, you all. We've seen it all, and sometimes it's great to be reminded. So that's it. I know it's late tonight, but I hope you all got a chance to watch the Kevin Samuels premiere. If not, go back and take a look. It's so good to hear from the Godfather in his own words. I miss him terribly. I'm so glad that I was able to talk to him one on one. He was an absolute blessing and game changer for my life. All right, everyone. So that's it. The Wives Club will be back with you probably next Friday night. Just stay connected here with your notifications on. If we need to move anything, we will. But I appreciate you all so much. And thank you. Until the next time, I'll see you all on another episode of The Wives Club. All right, everyone. Bye.